Russia has just pulled off something that's sending shockwaves through NATO's highest command centers. The same ballistic missiles that Ukraine's Patriots were successfully intercepting just months ago are now breaking through their defenses at an alarming rate. This isn't some minor technical hiccup. This is a fundamental game changer that could reshape the entire conflict and has massive implications for America's own defense strategy. As the technological arms race between East and West intensifies, we need to understand what the Patriot system actually is.
И события на Украине связаны с фундаментальными угрозами нашей национальной безопасности. Более того, мы всегда считали и считаем украинский народ, я говорил об этом неоднократно, братским, как это ни странно прозвучит в сегодняшних условиях. У нас одни корни, и все происходящее для нас – это трагедия и тяжелая боль. Поэтому наша страна искренне заинтересована в том, чтобы положить этому конец. Но при этом мы убеждены, что чтобы украинское урегулирование носило устойчивый и долгосрочный характер, должны быть устранены все первопричины кризиса, о которых говорили неоднократно. Обеспечен учет всех законных озабоченностей России, восстановлен справедливый баланс в сфере безопасности в Европе и в мире в целом. Я согласен с президентом Трампом, он сегодня говорил об этом, что, безусловно, должна быть обеспечена и безопасность Украины. Конечно.
The American-made MIM-104 Patriot isn't just any air defense system, it's the crown jewel of Ukraine's defensive network and considered the best defense against Russian ballistic missiles on the planet. These systems have been intercepting everything from domestically produced Iskander missiles to the hypersonic Kinjal daggers that Russia launches from fighter jets at over 7 miles above ground. Ukraine currently operates at least 6 Patriot batteries, transferred by NATO countries including the United States. These systems have been Ukraine's lifeline, successfully downing dozens of Kinjals, cruise missiles, ballistic missiles from North Korea, fighter jets, helicopters, and attack drones. When you see those spectacular explosions lighting up the night sky over Kyiv, that's often a Patriot missile hitting its target at supersonic speeds, creating split-second blasts followed by thunderous shockwaves. But something fundamental has changed. According to a bombshell report just released by the U.S. Department of Defense Office of Inspector General, Ukraine's Air Force has been struggling to consistently use its Patriot systems to intercept Russian ballistic missiles due to what they're calling recent tactical improvements that Moscow made to their weapons. The numbers paint a stark picture of this evolving threat. On June 28th, Russia launched 7 ballistic missiles and Ukraine shot down just 1. On July 9th, Kyiv managed to intercept 7 out of 13 missiles, still a concerning ratio when you're talking about weapons that can obliterate entire city blocks. Former Deputy National Security Advisor Ben Rhodes recently pointed out that even the most severe economic pressures have consistently failed to influence Russia's behavior across multiple administrations.
Zelensky or our European allies would think that the best course of action is to begin with a meeting in which Vladimir Putin, an indicted war criminal, is invited to the United States, to Alaska, without having made any indication that he's prepared to make a single concession. Putin's terms have remained remarkably consistent. Recognition of all the Russian annexed territories of Ukraine, which again, that's Ukrainian land. No Ukrainian membership in NATO. Essentially, no meaningful security guarantees for Ukraine, so Russia can continue to threaten, if not dominate, Ukraine. That's what Putin's wanted from the beginning of this war, and he has not shown any indication that he's changing. I think what the Ukrainians and Europeans are eager to do is to just try to communicate to Trump the concessions that Trump should not make to Putin in that meeting. It's vague in terms of what consequences would be imposed on Russia. We should say that economic penalties have not worked at all. They didn't work when I was in the White House in the Obama administration. They didn't work throughout the Trump administration. They didn't work in the Biden administration, even when the most severe sanctions we've ever seen were imposed on Russia. The question is whether the United States will provide enduring military support to Ukraine, whether the United States will provide meaningful security guarantees to Ukraine. That's the kind of pressure that Vladimir Putin might understand. I feel like we don't have a clear sense of what the objectives are beyond.
The sanctions imposed by Obama, Trump, and Biden have done little to deter Moscow's military ambitions. raising serious questions about whether traditional diplomatic and economic tools can address this new technological challenge. So what exactly has Russia done? The intelligence assessment reveals that Russia has been upgrading its ballistic missiles with enhancements that enable them to change trajectory and perform maneuvers rather than flying in a traditional ballistic trajectory. Think about that for a moment. These aren't your grandfather's ballistic missiles that follow predictable arcing paths. These are weapons that can literally change course mid-flight, making it nearly impossible for defensive systems to calculate where they're going to be. Ukrainian Air Force spokesperson Yuri Inat confirmed these developments, explaining that the enemy's missiles flying a ballistic trajectory, specifically the Iskander-M, have been improved and modernized. The updated missiles are now adopting what's called quasi-ballistic flight paths, which make it exponentially more challenging for Patriot systems to track and intercept them. Here's the technical reality that's keeping NATO commanders awake at night. Traditionally, the flight of a ballistic missile could be calculated at launch. The Patriot's sophisticated software would predict the missile's path and calculate the perfect interception point. But now, these upgraded Russian missiles reach their highest point and then perform additional maneuvers, making it nearly impossible to predict their new path for interception. The Iskander-M, which has been Russia's workhorse since its combat debut in Georgia in 2008, now follows what experts call a quasi-ballistic trajectory. Instead of just flying in a straight line like it's falling, it actually performs maneuvers during flight. Combined with its hypersonic terminal speed of Mach 6 to 7 and flight altitude between 6 to 50 kilometers, this makes it a formidable challenge for any air defense system on Earth. But Russia didn't stop there. Intelligence sources reveal that these upgraded missiles now come equipped with radar decoys, small, dart-shaped devices approximately 1 foot long that are ejected from the base of the missile. Each missile can carry at least 6 decoys stored in tubes at its rear. These decoys create false targets on radar screens, forcing Patriot systems to waste precious interceptor missiles on phantom threats, while the real warhead continues toward its target. The implications of this go far beyond Ukraine. The Patriot system isn't just Ukraine's defense. It's the backbone of American missile defense and is used by 18 countries worldwide, including major U.S. allies. If Russia has figured out how to consistently defeat Patriots, that's a problem that extends to American bases in the Middle East, European NATO allies, and potentially even the continental United States. Let's put this in perspective with some real-world examples. On March 9, 2024, an upgraded Iskander-M strike destroyed 2 German-supplied Patriot launchers near Pokrovsk, marking the first confirmed loss of Patriot components in Ukraine. In May 2025, a particularly devastating strike targeted a Patriot battery near Ordzhonikidze in Dnipropetrovsk, destroying radar equipment, a control cabin, and 2 launchers. While Ukraine claimed the battery remained operational, the attack highlighted vulnerabilities that defense planners are scrambling to address. As diplomatic efforts continue at the highest levels, the human cost continues to mount with devastating consequences.
In Moscow.
Oh, that's an interesting one. I don't know. I'll get a little heat on that one, but I could see it possibly happening. Thank you very much, Vladimir.
Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, our negotiations have been held in a constructive atmosphere of mutual respect. We have very thorough negotiations that were quite useful. I would like to thank once again my American counterpart for the proposal to travel out here to Alaska. It only makes sense that we've met here because our countries, though separated by the oceans, are close neighbors. So when we've met, when I came out of the plane and I've said, "Good afternoon, dear neighbor. Very good to see you. In good health and to see you alive." I think that is very neighborly. And I think that's some kind words that we can say to each other. We're separated by the Strait of Bering, though there are 2 islands only between the Russian island and the U.S. island. They're only 4 kilometers apart. We're close neighbors, and it's a fact. It's also important that Alaska has to do with our common heritage, common history between Russia and the
Так здесь и по сей день сохраняется огромное культурное наследие эпохи русской Америки.
Already in 2025, dozens of civilians have been killed in Russian ballistic missile attacks that penetrated Ukraine's defenses. On Palm Sunday in mid-April, 35 civilians were killed and 113 injured in a strike on the northeastern city of Sumy. That attack came just over a week after 20 people, including 9 children, were killed when a ballistic missile hit a playground in Kryvyi Rih. Both attacks involved Russian Iskander missiles that had broken through Patriot defenses. What makes this situation even more dire is the supply problem. Patriot missiles are extremely expensive. Each interceptor costs several $millions, and production is painfully slow. The U.S. has already suspended all exports of Patriot missiles and systems to other countries until Ukraine has enough to defend itself from Russia's air attacks. Secretary of State Marco Rubio recently told the Senate Foreign Relations Committee that, frankly, America doesn't have spare Patriot systems for Ukraine. Meanwhile, Russia's allies continue proving their support. North Korea has supplied the Kremlin with around 250 ballistic missiles since last autumn, according to Ukraine's military intelligence. This means Russia has a steady supply of the exact type of weapons that are now proving most effective against Western defenses. The timing of these developments couldn't be worse. Russia just conducted what's believed to be one of its most intense aerial assaults since the invasion began, firing more than 900 drones and 65 cruise missiles over a single weekend, plus multiple hard-to-intercept Kinjal hypersonic ballistic missiles. While the vast majority of non-ballistic airstrikes were intercepted, it's the ballistic missiles that are getting through and causing the most damage. But here's what might be the most concerning aspect of all this. If Russia has managed to upgrade decades-old missile technology to defeat America's most advanced air defense systems, what does that say about the technological arms race? The Patriot system was specifically designed in the 1970s to counter Soviet missiles. Now, those same missiles, or their direct descendants, have evolved to potentially defeat their intended counter. This isn't just about Ukraine anymore. The lessons learned from this conflict are being closely watched by military strategists worldwide. If Russia's approach proves consistently effective, expect to see similar missile upgrades proliferating to other potential adversaries. China, Iran, and other nations with ballistic missile programs are undoubtedly taking notes. The U.S. military is already responding. The Army has named air defense one of its highest priorities and is adjusting funding accordingly. In the fiscal 2025 budget, the Army requested $602 million in research and development for integrated air and missile defense and $2.8 billion in procurement. For Patriot modifications alone, the Army planned to spend $1.7 billion between 2024 and 2028, but has now requested an additional $229 billion across the same period to modify and upgrade Patriot capabilities. Ukrainian officials are cautiously optimistic that these challenges aren't insurmountable. Air Force spokesperson Ignat noted that while the improvements complicate interception, they don't make it impossible. He believes Western partners are already working to improve the system's capabilities. The recent interception rate of 2/3 of ballistic missiles is still considered high, but when you're talking about weapons that can level city blocks, even a 33% failure rate is unacceptable. What's particularly interesting is how this technological cat-and-mouse game reflects broader trends in 21st century warfare. Just as Ukraine has revolutionized drone warfare, forcing military planners worldwide to rethink battlefield tactics, these ballistic missile improvements are forcing a similar revolution in air defense thinking. The strategic implications extend beyond just technical capabilities. Russia's ability to consistently challenge America's premier air defense system sends a message to allies and adversaries alike. For NATO allies relying on Patriot systems for their own defense, this raises uncomfortable questions about their defensive posture. For potential adversaries, it demonstrates that American military technology isn't invincible. Looking forward, this development is likely to accelerate several trends. First, expect massive investment in next-generation air defense systems. The current Patriot upgrades are just the beginning. Entirely new approaches to missile defense may be necessary. Second, expect increased focus on offensive capabilities designed to take out missile launchers before they can fire, rather than trying to intercept missiles after launch. There's also a broader lesson here about the nature of modern warfare. Technology advantages that seem decisive can be eroded surprisingly quickly when opponents are motivated and resourceful. Russia's missile upgrades didn't happen overnight. They represent years of focused development aimed specifically at defeating Western air defenses. The question now is whether the West can adapt faster than Russia can innovate. With Ukraine serving as a real-world testing ground, both sides are learning and evolving at unprecedented speed. The side that can iterate faster, adapt quicker, and deploy improvements more effectively will likely determine not just the outcome in Ukraine, but the broader balance of military power for years to come. For Ukraine specifically, this means the urgent need for more Patriot systems and interceptors, even as those systems become less effective. It also means accelerating development of alternative air defense approaches. Ukraine has already significantly ramped up weapons manufacturing, increasing cruise missile production eightfold in 2024 compared to 2023, but defensive systems are proving much harder to develop quickly. The human element can't be ignored either. Behind all these technical discussions are real people, Ukrainian families huddled in shelters, children learning to recognize air raid sirens, entire cities adapting their daily routines around the threat of ballistic missile strikes. When defense systems fail, people die, and that stark reality drives the urgency behind every technical improvement and strategic adjustment. As this technological arms race continues, one thing is clear: the era of American air defense dominance may be coming to an end. Russia's upgraded ballistic missiles represent more than just tactical improvements. They're a fundamental challenge to Western military assumptions. How NATO and its allies respond will shape not just the outcome in Ukraine, but the future of global military balance. The stakes couldn't be higher, and the clock is ticking.